Welcome to another episode of Video Store Rejects, a podcast where we discuss directors' filmographies and our favorite film franchises. If that missed it, because I saw the seconds after I started talking, it's a podcast about directors' filmographies. And this filmography, we are talking about the whimsical world of Wes Anderson. This is a very special episode because we are actually live in person with most of the people talking today. We are at our very good friends and our guests today on the show, Stephen and Jess Hollingworth, here to talk about Wes's third film, and some say his best, The Royal Tenenbaums. Welcome, Jess and Stephen. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. I am one of the hosts, Cody House, and with me, as always, is our social media content person, Chris Jacobs, and his wife, who does the fact-checking and research for us sometimes, Lindsay Jacobs.
Hello.
And we also have another special guest, just to round it out. All the spouses, everyone's spouse is here. My wife is making an appearance on the show. This is Jessica House.
Ooh, drum roll! Yes!
Hey. Welcome. I've been saying for a while, we need to get Jessica on the show.
Aw, thanks, Chris. See, this is how she'll find out that podcasting isn't so bad.
Yeah.
It's people winging their way through a 45-minute to hour-and-a-half conversation.
Yep.
Right. If I can BS my way through it, you can BS your way through it too.
We'll see.
No, you're really good at it.
So this was an interesting one. I think this episode was booked even before Wes Anderson won our March Madness picks, when we had our big March Madness pick of directors. Stephen, you were already claiming the Royal Tenenbaums before we even knew Wes Anderson was going to be a director we were going to cover. You were like, if you do Wes Anderson, I have Royal Tenenbaums. This is my movie. I'm doing it.
Yeah, Wes was my pick from the start, from the very beginning of the bracket.
So what do you love about this movie, and why are you so passionate to talk about it?
First of all, Wes Anderson has a very unique way of doing films. You know, it's very unique to him. A lot of quirkiness. There's a lot of feedback, so sorry. He has specific ways of doing the filmography. Like, a lot of times he'll show a scene where he's not showing the action that's going on. He actually shows the reaction of the people watching the action. And so you get a lot of emotion from that, a lot of feeling from what's happening emotionally, rather than just having some action scene. So I like that about a lot of his movies. And with Royal Tenenbaums itself, I first saw this around 2005 when I was going through a divorce. And so there were different aspects emotionally that resonated with me. Specifically like the unrequited love aspect, and also with Chazzy and his two kids and the loss of their mother. You know, I at the time was a single dad with two kids, and so a lot of this resonated. Resonated.
So had you seen any of his two previous films? And you said 2005, so at this point he had also done Life Aquatic. Have you seen either of those films before this one?
So I think I probably saw, I had seen Battle Rock. Yeah, I had seen all of his film at that time. I probably saw this and Life Aquatic probably right together.
Jess, are you a fan of Wes Anderson?
Yeah.
Was this your first one, or had you seen his?
No, I think this is my first one.
Okay.
Probably.
So, I know Bottle Rocket was kind of a low budget, using the Wilson brothers, and they were not very known at the time. I don't think they were known at the time.
That was the first time you ever heard of the Wilsons. That's the first time we ever heard "wow" on
Wow.
And then they had Rushmore,
Mhm.
in which he worked with Bill Murray. And
Yep.
obviously, Bill Murray thought he was good enough to do another film with him. It still makes me wonder, this is his third film overall, and he's working with actors like Gene Hackman and Danny Glover and Angelica Houston. I wonder if he was nervous working with them or intimidated.
Well, that's the interesting fact that I learned about the behind the scenes of this movie was, for those of you who don't know, because he hasn't acted since 2004, Gene Hackman is a legendary screen character actor. And Gene Hackman is kind of known for being a little persnickety. And he hates when people would write roles specifically like to tailor like his performance style or his persona. He more so liked roles that he could put himself into the character. And apparently he was a little difficult working with Wes, maybe because, Wes wasn't a veteran director yet, even though he had 2 films under his belt. And apparently Bill Murray and Angelica Houston would both be on the set, even if they weren't filming, kind of as like emotional support to make sure Wes was okay. Because of how Gene Hackman kind of could be on the day.
Wow. And here I was thinking, man, I really wish this had been Gene Hackman's last movie and not Welcome to Mooseport.
Right. Yeah. I say that all the time. Like, this is like a perfect last role for an actor.
Yeah.
So do you know how much of his dialogue was actually written and how much he just winged? Because he has some real good sayings in this movie.
That I don't know. That is interesting. I'm wondering, because I don't know if Gene Hackman's known for like his improvisational, like, he's got Bill Murray on there. So I wonder, like, because my favorite bit with Bill Murray in the movie is when they hire the private investigator to look up info on Margot if she's having an affair. And through all that bevy history of lovers and affairs, he's like, she smokes.
Yeah. That was great.
Yeah, so Wes has a lot of good dialogue in his shows. I really like that. And I definitely was wondering about the Gene Hackman. I wrote down a few of the things that he said. Talking to the kids, obviously we made certain sacrifices having children. Hold it, Chazzy. There's no teams. With his daughter right there. This is my adopted daughter, Margot. And Margot's play about animals. It just didn't seem believable.
Crushed it.
Talking to Chazzy's kids, I'm sorry for your loss. Your mother was a terribly attractive woman.
Oh yeah, when he was like, "Oh wait, there's another body buried in the cemetery, right?" Okay,
that's right. We have another body buried here.
So I listened to a podcast recently that talked about this movie. They were talking about, the line exchange him and Henry have, Danny Glover, near the end of the movie, where Royals kind of had a little bit of a character change. And he's like, I'm sorry if I was an asshole to you. It's just kind of my nature. And he's like, I don't think you're an asshole. You're a son of a bitch. Yeah. And they were talking about the difference between those two is that an a-hole is somebody who's purposely malicious and mean and rude, but an SOB is someone that's just kind of bad at things. So, like, I don't think Royal is intentionally a bad dad. He just sucks at being a dad.
Well, it can also be something that's learned from your parents. You're a son of a bitch because your parents were that way and you learned that trait from them. You don't know that it's bad.
Yeah.
There are some striking parallels here, but I will not get political with it. between Royal and his kids, his family in general, and the way he perceived himself, even though he was poor, like
you mean broke?
Even though he was broke, the way he still perceived himself to be a wealthy man, and the way he treated his kids. I just turned to Lindsay. I was like, man, we just had this dude in the White House for
I don't think Trump is as classy of a person as Roy.
No, I'm just saying there
yeah.
were parallels. There were
Yeah.
certain aspects that were like, man, that's straight up. He just reminds me of.
I think
Of
to
Trump
a
right
point,
there.
Gene Hackman's character is a son of a bitch because, yeah, maybe he did grow up in a family where nobody cared about each other and
Mhm.
nobody took care of each other. And he does seem kind of oblivious to how awful he is for the most part. But
Until he starts becoming self-aware through the show, throughout the movie.
right.
Seeing himself in the eyes of his kids and grandkids.
Right. The tragedy of that being that it took making it to the end of almost to the end of his life. And his children are adults who have all these quirks that are probably just like different expressions of the trauma that they endured. Like, it's crazy that you said that Gene Hackman was really difficult on set because he seems to fit this role really naturally. Like, he just seems like an oblivious jerk with absolutely no filter. It was hard to like. I love his character because it's so well made, but at the same time, I just like hated that character for the whole movie. Just like, you are the burr under everybody's saddle, so to speak, throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you can see how it like spiderwebs out to Chaz and Chaz's kids and the way that he's dealing with his wife being gone and Margot going to find her birth family and getting her finger chopped off and not telling anybody. And he did very well. I would say that if this wasn't made for Gene Hackman made this character for himself.
It wasn't made for him. You know who they originally wanted to cast, which would work in a Wes Anderson movie, but he turned it down. And I don't. Gene Wilder. Gene Wilder is who Wes Anderson wanted for this.
Wow. That would have been interesting.
That would have been quite the movie.
Let's see, 2001. He was still doing he was still writing his books and doing like TV movies and stuff. Yeah.
I think it'd have been interesting because he seems like a guy that would have worked with Wes Anderson, but at the same time, it might have been hard for people to see Gene Wilder be like, yeah. Exactly. Like, people be like, that's not Willy Wonka, even though Willy Wonka
was a dick.
Yeah.
Though. I mean,
He was sadistic.
Yeah, Willy Wonka would totally be in a Wes Anderson movie. That whole character. Yeah.
My favorite bad thing Willy Wonka does is when Augustus Gloop is drowning, he's like, oh no, somebody, what shall we do? Like, he got what he deserved. Like,
yeah, that's going to keep me up at night thinking about Gene Wilder in that role now. Just like what this movie would have been. Now I have to watch more Gene Wilder stuff and write it down.
I think this is an interesting film for Wes Anderson because it's kind of an ending point for one part of his career, but it's kind of a beginning point for the rest of his career. So like, this is kind of the end of like these interpersonal stories because his movies get much more extravagant after this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But this is like really the beginning of like the color schemes and the symmetry that we come to know.
Oh, I was gonna give a huge shout out to the soundtrack because I'm a huge soundtrack guy, and everything on this, like, I own this soundtrack strictly because it has my favorite Bob Dylan song on there, which is Wigwam. And I was like, when I heard it in the movie, I was like, yeah, instant classic. You know,
he plays good background music for the scenes and what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of what makes you feel the emotions for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't know, I'm sure it's happened before, but this has got to be like a mind explosion for British invasion bands because this has the Beatles and the Rolling Stones in the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
So you can like both bands.
So Roll has one of the best lines in the movie, I think, and it was, you know, when he says the last 6 days have probably been the best days of my life. Immediately after making the statement, Royal realized that it was true. That was genius by whoever wrote
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
I gotta say, I love Alec Baldwin's narration in
Yeah, very
this
good.
movie. His voice and like just the demeanor he voices, it's really good. I wonder if he would ever get to work with Wes live action wise too, because I feel like his comedy skills as an actor could play into the world of Wes Anderson.
I will tell you one of my favorite and most off the wall moments that caught, and it still catches me off guard, is when Pagoda just stands there and opens up his knife and goes, "You son of a bitch," and just stabs him in his stomach. And I'm like,
I know.
But then immediately when they get to the YMCA, like is
It's your
patching
fault,
him up.
"It's your fault."
So the guy who played Pagoda was actually in the first 3 films, and then the one with the train.
Mm-hmm.
Darjeeling.
In the Darjeeling Limited.
Yeah,
I like
and then
that. I really
the guy
like
who
that
plays
one.
The doctor is his real life son. Is
Yes.
Pagoda's real life son.
Yes,
he
and
was
he-
in the first 3 movies.
He's also in Bottle Rocket and Rushmore. Yeah. Another thing I really like about this movie is I think it plays on, especially like when the pressures parents put on their kids. So like when parents find out that their kid is really good at something, or like they have a natural talent towards something, they sometimes exploit that
Mhm.
and put a lot of pressure on the kid. And a lot of times, it explores like they're called geniuses, and here they are in their 30s, and it feels like they feel like they're washed up and like their life is going downwards.
I really like Angelica Houston and the way she does her parenting, but because it doesn't seem like she's pushing them, like she's giving them the tools they need to succeed. Like when Chaz comes up and says, "I need $187," and she looks at him and says, "Write yourself a check." And helping. What was the brother's name?
Are you talking about the friend Eli, played by Owen Wilson?
No.
Richie.
Richie. Yeah.
Richie, Luke Wilson.
Yeah, helping Richie put up his drawings in the gallery, even though they weren't good. She was just giving him the tools and letting them go. And it didn't seem like putting pressure on him. Although, wasn't she the one who wrote the book?
She wrote the book
so
about
that
them.
might have actually put extra emphasis on it. But I really liked her character and how she dealt with the kids.
And which I guess Ben Stiller, Chaz, is doing
Mhm.
fine financially in his career. It's just he is not doing well emotionally.
He's got them all in speed suits.
Right.
And they have his hairdo too, poor kid.
I like the fact that she was like Mrs. Tenenbaum was, or Ethelene was Eli's mother as well. Like the fact that he sent her, his grades all throughout college, and then his clippings and stuff like that. I thought that was a cool little touch.
She was a mom to them all.
Yeah, and he's an interesting character. He might be my least favorite character in the movie, though, because he feels like that, hack writer that feels like he's an intellectual, but really he's not an intellectual at all. But he just wants to be a part of the family.
Oh, the friend?
Yeah.
Like he has a career, but he's not on genius level like they're regarded. Like
Exactly.
he's the redheaded stepchild, like almost.
But he's successful because he goes through with the confidence. It's like he picked up the confidence from the.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, but at the same time, he is the more successful at this moment.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Right.
Well, I don't know Chaz's whole business thing, but because it seems like his business is doing just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Just not his mental state.
Yeah. But Eli has it all.
Right.
But he has a drug problem.
And some really weird art.
Weird artwork. I don't know what's up with that art. I do not get it.
Yep. This is also the last film that they collaborate on the screenplay together. This is the last screenplay Owen Wilson works on. But I mean, after this movie, he does kind of blow up and is in everything.
Yeah, started doing his own. his own movies, which they're both out there. I still think it's funny that they're both in comic book properties now.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because Owen Wilson was in Loki, and Luke Wilson is on Stargirl.
Right.
I mean, everybody you got to do a comic book thing now, unless you're Leonardo DiCaprio. He seems to be the only big name actor that's escaped that.
Oh, just wait. It'll happen at some point.
Leonardo DiCaprio is too busy saving the planet, he thinks.
In real life.
He doesn't have time for that Marvel schedule. He's got to save the turtles.
Yeah.
Because he drives what are those cars called? It's not a Tesla. It's
Do you have a Prius?
I think he drives a Prius. Yeah.
Ooh, like us lowly people.
Maybe he just like hates Elon Musk. Maybe that's why he doesn't drive a Tesla.
Which I respect.
I mean, I kind of hate Elon Musk too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to be good. Now he's problematic. Mostly. A CEO, and that's what he cares about most.
And going to space.
Going to space.
Man, what's up with billionaires sending themselves to space?
Because they can.
It's either just to rub it in our faces or to remind us which ones to eat first.
Yeah.
Um,
They know something's coming. There's like an asteroid or something that's hurling towards the Earth, and they're getting ready to take off.
Well, I hope
That's my guess, but
I hope they're
No,
both.
it's the aliens. It's totally the aliens. That's why we had Space Force. Trump found out that there is aliens on other planets, and we needed a Space Force. So yes, aliens are about to take over.
I think that's right. I think that's why they let him create Space Force, just so he wouldn't blurt like Area 51 is real into a
Right.
camera and microphone.
Exactly.
or Alex Jones was right, and they're running from the lizard people that are about to emerge from
Alex Jones is the lizard people.
their underground world.
Oh, so Doctor Who is telling the truth.
Oh yeah, Doctor. That's just the foreshadowing. They know something. BBC.
Or as Rick and Morty have it, the horse people.
So Jess, you had recently said this movie aged well, but now you said it hasn't. So
Yeah,
tell us.
We watched it like within the last year, and I was like, I'd gone into it thinking, oh, this isn't gonna have like aged well, and then I was like, oh no, it was pretty good. And then when we watched it for this, I was like, what the hell was I thinking? So I don't know what I didn't pick up on the first time, but yeah, I mean, there's problematic stuff in this.
My Oogie factor is, and it's the same problem I had in Rushmore, is with the relationship,
the romance. And
I mean,
we should check
I
out
know
Wes Anderson. I'm
technically
about
they were not brother and sister, but when you're raised brother and sister,
I think that how
I don't
badly
know,
their
it's-
father treated them is why it felt acceptable to them, because Margot was never allowed to just exist in that family as one of the kids. It was always,
Right.
this is my adopted daughter. This is Margot.
Yeah.
She's a genius in spite of being adopted. It's probably because of how we raised her. So they were more like childhood friends than getting to be siblings.
I mean,
We were
yeah,
just
I
watching
can see that, but still,
it is Oogie.
there's still that. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's a little too close to me.
we were just watching part of this documentary thing about LuLaRoe.
Ooh, we just
Yeah.
watched that.
That family, one of the adopted daughters actually is now married to one of the
Oh yeah,
actual sons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
but that's not what I found problematic about it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to butt in. Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
She has a and let her guide us, because this
Yeah.
happens every time.
Oh, dang.
I will go off on some tangent. You just got to butt
I
in.
mean, it was, Royals casual racism.
I have a thought on that.
That was not casual.
No.
No, that was like
It's
aggressively.
borderline racial. Like,
Here's the thing I think. I think Royal is doing it on purpose to get a rise out of Henry But I think he's also like, I'm going to be racist, but I'm going to be at least respectful enough that I'm not just going to be a blatant racist. I'm going to like underlie that racist.
Way more dangerous.
It is.
I have a few phrases that he says.
There's like 3 or 4 in a row.
Look at that old grizzly bear. I mean, that's on the border of racism. What do you think of that big old black buck moving in up there?
Oh my God.
Coltrane.
Yeah.
You want to talk some jive? Talk some jive like you've never heard.
Yeah, those are the ones I had written down.
And then he says, right on.
Yeah, right on. Slap me some skin. I think he said slap me some skin.
Yeah.
I do love his hesitancy, though. He's like, did you just call me Coltrane? He's like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. Yeah. And then he turns around. He's like, but if I had.
Yeah.
Royal fight starting. He's terrible.
But let's discuss more of what has not aged well in the 20 years since this came out.
So the whole like slut shaming of Margot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And is that why Richie tries to kill himself? And because that's manipulative as fuck.
It is.
I think it's more because he found out about Eli.
Yeah.
And the current nature of it.
Yeah, but he was upset about
her having an affair, right? Because when Bill Murray comes to him, not realizing that he's in love with her too, is like, I think she's having an affair. He punches the window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And is more upset than Bill Murray is about it.
Yeah.
I want to know how the private investigator knew about all the people she had made out with over time. Not people that she had married.
He was really good.
Yeah.
It's a really good PI.
People who had random.
I mean, you saw his camera, right? You saw that camera lens and zoom how far it could go.
But anyways, yeah. The slut shaming of Margot is what really got me.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say about that suicide scene, it is like one of the most well done shots on film.
That was again where he had emotional music playing in the background, and then he has the look of the face of what's going on and not what's actually happening, and then the aftermath.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that scene plays heartstrings like a harp. Like that is just, it's brutal. It was almost what made me say I wasn't going to watch the movie ever again, but I did. I had to.
What's sad about that scene more so is the song they use. I think it's called Needle in the Hay by Elliott Smith. That musician killed himself later. Yeah. Which I didn't know till recently.
So you had to do homework for this, or like just you found it out?
I just heard it from somebody else talking about the movie.
So yeah, homework.
So I guess it's sort of homework, but it wasn't intentional homework. I was just like, oh, they're talking about Royal Tenenbaums? We're about to talk about Royal Tenenbaums.
That's grown-up homework. It just like sneaks in there on you.
I like the scene when Margot is getting off the bus the first time that Richie sees her again. And he does the music in the background, and then he does the slow motion, see her getting off the bus. And it's the first time in the film up to that point that you see Margot not frowning.
Mm-hmm.
And the light is just like so blindingly sunshiny on her when she's finally not frowning that it's great.
And then she has this kind of smirk, this little tiny smile that comes up when she sees Richie.
Do we think that might be the character Wes identifies with the most, though, is Margot? Because I could see him totally doing like all those little plays and like collages she does like as a kid.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say this seems like pretty close to home for him in his home life. Like they said that they've met his parents and stuff, and it's like kind of the vibe that his family has. Maybe a little less dysfunctional, maybe not, but
weren't they academics as well? His parents?
Yeah, I think both of his parents were academics, so they probably like strived for him to be like a genius or good at whatever he decides to do.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
All this, I identified with Margot so much. I mean, aesthetically, obviously, for then, yeah. And she was really depressed, and not in a happy marriage. And particularly, like, I also enjoyed locking myself in the bathtub with cigarettes because 2000s.
She was very good at deflecting. Like at one time, Raleigh says, "Have you met someone else?" And she says, "I don't even know how to begin to think about answering that."
But I wonder, is she unhappy just because she's just unhappy? Because Riley doesn't seem like a bad dude. He seems like a good guy.
It's
It's
probably one of those
okay.
things where it's more of my life is stale.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, because she's been going to other countries and meeting guys and you know, used to doing things more exciting. And now you have Raleigh who's sitting there with this kid.
Was it just me, or did it get the vibe that she married him because he's not only much older, but he looks kind of like her dad? Like she wanted more of a dad.
Yep.
Father
Father figure.
Yeah, father figure. Thank you, father figure than anything, and that's why he's like, "Oh, do you still love me?" And she goes, "I don't know, maybe, kind of," or something like that. Like, you know, I don't know. Maybe like Lindsay mentioned that, like, wow, Bill Murray, like he's a lot older and he looks kind of like, you know, her dad.
Yeah, they have the same vibe for sure.
Yeah, that same vibe.
And maybe she thought he could fix her, like, you know, what was going on with her and her emotions towards Richie and stuff. So go with the psychologist, you know, and maybe that will help things.
That brings up the scene with Richie playing tennis in his last tennis match. Absolute breakdown.
Why did he take off the shoe?
Who's he looking at up in the stand? I believe that's his
He takes his shoes and socks off.
No. Just one shoe and one sock on the other foot. So he's playing with one sock and then barefooted. I don't know. It was weird.
That was a
strange.
great scene. I love it. And the way he filmed it. And the way he filmed it was he didn't film it like they're at the tennis courts. He filmed it looking at a small TV. And it's playing on this old TV.
I love that.
Yeah. That's him being nostalgic for old technology. And that's also Wes Anderson as the announcer of the game, if you guys didn't know that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I think there are two characters in this film that are probably the nicest people, even though we just talked about Richie possibly being manipulative. I think him and Henry are probably the two nicest people in the movie, though, for the most part.
I think Henry and the mother.
And the mother's very sweet, and I like that relationship. And I love how he just kind of casually proposes to her.
Oh, yeah. He's talking about tax law, and I think it would be beneficial.
Okay, that's part of the reason he proposed to me, though. Okay, yeah, there's that. And my first note
about taxes.
My first note was, you know, they stay together for healthcare. As only in Royal, and I'm like, healthcare, that's a legit reason to stay married or get married. So feel that.
You can definitely tell it's in the United States.
Yep.
Well, you and I have discussed getting divorced for tax reasons.
Yeah,
it would just be better. And for our kids to go to college, it would have been so much easier had we been divorced. But yeah, so we discussed it seriously, but it just seemed like too much of a process.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son and his fiance of like 3 years have not gotten married because it's better for benefits for her
to stay single. Yeah.
USA #1.
And Royal doesn't care about anything. Is her name? Is it Ethel or Eleanor?
Etheline.
Etheline. I saw it was the names. Yeah. Etheline. He doesn't care anything until he finds out, one, she's getting married to another man, and two, he's out of money. He's broke and he's getting kicked out of his hotel room.
That's just typical of a man, though. You know, oh, you don't care about me until someone else is interested. I mean, that's, you know, you hear that all the time. Yeah.
because the possibility was still there.
But the methods he goes to create this ruse is really top notch. Like, he gets old medical equipment.
The Tic Tacs are the best. Like,
What's that?
Tic Tacs make great pills. I've used them many times in theater.
Though I don't know why only Henry is the one questioning. Maybe because everyone else has some sort of emotional attachment. Because he says he has stomach cancer and he's eating cheeseburgers
3 times a day. And his wife, he did mention his wife had stomach cancer, and he knew what it looked like. And he goes, "Nah, this jackass doesn't have stomach cancer, you know."
All of his kids have wildly different reactions to him saying, Chaz, yawn. How long are you going to last?
Yeah.
Margot is like,
she's indifferent, and then Richie is the only one that is like seems to be. But he's also, I guess, probably Royal's favorite child.
Yeah,
because
he's the only one that Royal actually gave attention to growing up.
Took him to the dog fights. Yeah.
Okay. That was unnecessary.
Dog fights and the dog killing.
They could have been doing anything else other than dog fights.
And maybe that's why I think Eli's the worst character, because he murders a dog.
He does.
Yeah. And Ben Stiller nearly murders him.
Okay, he had every freaking right to. He killed the dog and almost his son.
Yep.
Yeah, he forgave him way too quickly.
But I really do love that scene between Royal and Chaz after all that goes down, and Chaz just breaks down and says, it hasn't been a good year for me.
Oh, that is so sweet.
And he's like, I know it hasn't.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite scenes of the movie, is when after the crash and the fire department comes, and it just does this one big panning scene where it pans to the right and it stops on a conversation, and then it pans on the right and it picks up another conversation. Pans to the right more, and it's just this one big scene of all the different characters having different conversations at the it seems like they're going on at the same time, but the important stuff happens when the camera gets onto them. That was a really good scene.
So I mean, that's a whole turnaround for that relationship, because like you said, Chaz is like, I don't care, why are you here, get out of my life, you're a horrible person, you stole money from me.
Shot me with a BB gun.
Which actually happened to the older Wilson brother, Andrew Wilson, who's briefly in this movie as one of Margot's real relatives from Indiana, who chops her finger off with the axe.
Right.
He actually apparently has BBs lodged in his hand from as a kid. So that's another thing that Anderson and Owen Wilson pulled from their own life to put into the movie.
That's cool. That reminds me of shooting my brother in the foot with a pellet gun.
Super cool.
Yeah, we had watched Back to the Future 3, where Biff is making him dance, by shooting the ground. And, me and my best friend thought it would be funny to make my brother dance by shooting pellets. Yeah. And one went through his tennis shoe, like right between the webbing of his toes. And it immediately, as soon as the tears started flowing, it went straight to, don't tell mom, I'll do anything. Yeah, oh yeah. But anyway, sorry. That's every time he gets shot with the BB and he rolls it around in his hand, I'm like, that just reminds me of shooting my brother in the foot.
How old was he?
Oh man, he had to be probably 9, 10 years old. So yeah, he was pretty young. But I mean, we used to shoot each other with BBs. Like, they didn't hurt that much. And this is before paintball kind of came along, and we were able to get any paintball guns. So yeah, it was BBs for a while.
So we used to do that with the BB guns, and we'd have like the Red Ryder type BB guns, so it wouldn't hurt that bad. And then I had a friend who had one of those pump up ones. We made a rule: you can only pump it once. But no, sometimes it would go through people's clothing. You're like, no, that was not one time, guy. You bumped that 10 times, didn't you?
No shooties in the faces now.
Boys.
Safety goggles.
I was having tea parties.
And why I perfectly understand how Chaz feels and where Chaz is coming from, especially not just with Royal, just where he is emotionally. Because I feel like I would probably be a Chaz if like all that stuff
plane
happened
crash
to me.
Was so recent. It's like that just happened. Like I think he's doing pretty well.
But I mean, he does get an unhealthy obsession with safety and like trying. But I mean, you know, if you've lost your wife, of course you want to keep the rest of your loved ones as safe as you can.
But it's like, it makes me think of the Venture Brothers and how
Well, now I want to see a live action Venture Brothers with Ben Stiller as Dr. Venture.
When he runs out there with the stopwatch and they're standing there, and then he was like, "Congratulations,
we're all dead.
We burned up in the fire."
Buckley's too late.
And I'm like, we're all burned up to a crisp. I'm like, man, those poor boys.
Got a new dog right after.
I know, immediately right after he died. Yeah.
Buckley was there for them emotionally through all of that.
He was in the plane crash too.
Yeah.
And
he's such a cute dog.
Yep. Sparkplug came and replaced him right away.
Yep. It's rough.
Royal apparently though is the dog whisperer because he tells every dog to sit, they sit.
Yeah.
So he's got some kind of sixth sense with dogs. That or he just has a commanding voice that they're like, okay.
No, they knew he took his child to watch dog fighting. They're like, oh shit, better listen to this.
Or he'll put me in a dog fight.
Yeah.
Or listen to this old man. And I love that he gets his the elevator guy to pretend to be a doctor.
Yeah, he was like, some deep breaths, cough, all like just like holding his hand and like watching us. And then I love he gets the beep.
What tells him, can you fill in for somebody?
Yeah, and he's just reading it like, oh yeah, I'm important doctor stuff. That was great.
I guess that makes me a little bit young because I didn't know beepers had like little text messages on them.
Oh yeah.
So I guess that's
those are the whoop-de beepers.
Yeah. It's
a couple little details I like. You know, first they have the gypsy cabs. A lot of gypsy cabs.
Yes.
And some of them are just beat to hell.
They're all down.
You know, that is and they stand out because everything else in this movie looks absolutely gorgeous and like it's perfection and as good as it can look. And then there's all these shitty looking cabs in the middle of New York City. Like that's all they can get.
Well, that one boy even points it out, like, there's a dent in your cab.
And over here. And over here.
Yeah. Like he points out all the imperfections in that one scene. And then, like you said, everything else is like immaculate or the way he wants it to be set up. So that was pretty interesting.
And talk about music. That might be, other than in the actual Charlie Brown Christmas special, that might be like the best use of the Charlie Brown Christmas special music is that scene where Margot is going into the cab with her mother, which I also love the previous scene with her in the bathroom. And she's like, well, Chaz and the boys have come to stay with me. And she's like, well, why do they get to do that? Which is
he's allowed to do that. Yeah.
Which is such a sibling thing. Like when you hear like your brother or sister gets to do something or is doing, well, why do they get special treatment?
Right.
Yeah, I could totally see my girls saying something like that.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. Why is she coming home? I want to come home too.
Yeah, Bill Murray was sitting there with Dudley, and he was listing off all of his different conditions. And, he has so he says with a highly acute sense of hearing. And then from the other room, Dudley says, "I'm not colorblind, am I?" like real far away because he's sitting there whispering into the paper with a highly acute sense of hearing. I'm not colorblind, am I?
Yeah, possibly.
Afraid you are.
Yeah.
And then he just leaves Dudley. That's his name, right? He just leaves Dudley there at the Tannenbaums' house, like, and they just kind of, he's just there. I don't know.
They just kind of pick up for each other.
That's what they do. They just adopt people because people want to be a part of the Tenenbaums.
Yeah, I mean, where's Dudley's parents to begin with?
Yeah. Why are they letting this middle-aged man hang out with their young boy to do experiments on him?
Because he's freaking weird. Please figure out what's wrong with him.
So, and of course, Bill Murray's exploiting him too.
Well, yeah.
Because,
I don't know. He's using him for his book, right?
Yeah,
That's what he does.
yeah.
It's not exploitation, is it?
I mean,
in a way.
science is exploitation. A little bit.
Oh.
Reusing
Is he
things
getting
to...
paid for it?
Yeah, the kid's probably not getting paid for
No,
it.
it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if he even knows what money is.
He
that
probably
kid.
doesn't. He can't tell time, apparently.
Sure.
Can you tell time? Oh, God.
Oh, God.
No, then that makes it even worse.
It does.
Yeah.
Because, he can't even, pick up for himself, like stand up for himself. So who's standing up for Dudley?
Us.
Yeah. Well, and when Richie kills himself or tries to kill himself and Margot goes to the hospital, she asks Dudley, where is he? And of course, it's legitimate. Dudley's like, who? Because he's like, your husband or your brother? Who?
Oh, man.
There's so many little quirky things that you can pick up, each time and that's one of the reasons I like movies, that I can watch again and see something
There
I
are
didn't
very
notice.
few of them.
Yeah, because there's not a whole lot.
Doesn't do that.
One of them is Chaz's youngest son is the only one that talks. The older kid never says anything. Anytime anybody asks the kids a question, the younger one is always the one that's answering.
Oh, I didn't even notice. Cool.
And you guys know the Mordecai the Hawk story?
No.
So, at the end, the hawk comes back and he says, is that Mordecai? He's turned white. Well, when they originally filmed it, they had a Mordecai and he flew off and somebody in New York caught him and was blackmailing them, saying that I'm not giving you this hawk back unless you pay me.
Oh my gosh.
And
Wow.
they wouldn't pay him to get the hawk back, and they were trying to get the law enforcement involved. But ownership, possession is 9/10 of the law. So hey, this is my hawk. It's in my house. It's my hawk.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so they actually had to get a different hawk to do the final scene. And
Wow.
Wes kind of played it off as well. I kind of wanted him to look different anyway, like he had seen things in the world. And so that's why he had feathers that turned white.
Well, I hope Mordecai's okay or was okay. I hope that
Right.
guy kidnapped
Never
him.
goes, wow.
Being mean to him.
What happened to Mordecai? This thing is very problematic with animals.
See?
Oh, wow.
So was Mordecai just up there in that cage from the time he was little up until the time he came back?
I wondered that too. Who was taking care of
Who was taking
Mordecai?
care of Mordecai?
Pagoda.
Oh, maybe.
He cannot be trusted.
No.
Because he'll stab you and then save your life immediately after he stabs you.
It's a little sus.
Yeah, and he said that at first he was an assassin. Pagoda was an assassin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's who stabbed him the first time, because he was an assassin.
Nice.
He had a bounty on his head. That's great.
But then somehow they formed a kinship because he ends up working for the family and then he tells the royal when all this stuff happens.
Mhm.
Spy.
He was an assassin and a snitch.
Yeah, you can see him in the background when what's his name, ask
Henry.
Etheline to marry him. He's in the back. He's sitting in the background, and he takes off the headphones like he's listening. Like, what? Marriage? Huh?
But then, of course, he has a really random scene with when Owen Wilson is running from Ben Stiller, and he's like, "You got to try these whatever hors d'oeuvres or whatever it was." It's just random. Like some the randomness, not as random as Eli Cash's artwork in his house, though.
I want to find those prints. Those are hilarious. I'd love to.
I looked them up after seeing the movie. It's like, what the heck is going on here? He has like a whole series. That's not just the two that he has in his house. There's a whole series of those paintings.
Do you want
That's awesome.
No, not really. Not that big, at least.
Okay, fair.
It'd be fun to have like a little montage or something of smaller prints.
So why do you think the whole Indian and cowboy thing going on with Cash? Like, what was that about?
Yeah, it was upsetting.
Especially when he's wearing the war paint. Like,
Yep.
yeah, that was problematic.
Yes.
I think it's a persona he picked up because if you notice when they flash back to the whole shaming of Margot with all the montage of all the different people she's making out with, Eli is like a completely different looking guy. He looks more like what a literature professor you think a literature professor would look like.
Well, it could also be that he was trying to get into the characters that he was writing at the time. And obviously he was doing a lot of drugs at the time. So, it could have been in his mind, I'm going to be this character.
Well, yeah, because his book's about Custer, right?
Yeah.
So he's like trying to take
That's
on.
That's what I took it as. Is he's so into his. You know how there are method actors who will go and do things like that, but he does it for his writing. He just dives headfirst into it. Like, I'm going to be a cowboy for a year or two until this book comes out, and then when I start writing about a detective, I'm going to start wearing trench coats and
drinking a bunch of whiskey,
hats, and drinking whiskey. I'm gonna completely turn into,
Oh, that's right. He was doing peyote.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I just that scene where he's waiting for Margot in the closet in his underwear just makes me cringe.
Yeah.
That was
Like,
weird.
oh.
Yeah.
Which I normally like Owen Wilson and things, but maybe that's the purpose of this character. We're not supposed to like him, or I guess you're supposed to feel sorry for him, but
His character, well, I don't know. His character in The Cable Guy is pretty
oh, is he
up.
the guy that Jim Carrey kills in The Cable Guy?
Or he
It's been
beats
so
him up
long
in the
since I've
bathroom.
seen that.
Remember Ben Stiller's?
That was his directorial debut. No, not his directorial
not Ben
debut.
Stiller,
He directed it though.
Matthew Broderick's fiance or serious girlfriend. They take a break and she's going out with this dude, and it ends up being Owen Wilson. And then Jim Carrey like beats him up in the bathroom and tells him to stay away from him. Yeah, because when he starts going like off the rails. But yeah, that's who he reminded me of a little bit. Was his character in that.
The other thing I really love about this movie is it's about a dysfunctional family, but even if you can't stand your family, you're still there for them. Like, you still love them. You still want to support them, but like there's like, I don't really like you, but I love you.
Oh yeah.
Going on in this.
I kind of see.
Yeah, I got that vibe.
Kind of see two sides of that. It changes obviously as the movie goes along, but at the beginning, and Chaz and Margot could not care less if Royal was dead or not. I just really want nothing to do with him. And obviously, as he becomes more self-aware and starts changing attitudes, that changes. I don't know that it changes with Margot, because she literally says, "You're not my dad." And but at least what Chaz does.
Well, yeah, because I mean, they start having a relationship, and Chaz is the one that's there with him when he dies.
Yeah.
And if a year prior to that happening, Chaz could care less, and of course, Chaz feels that way because of how Royal treats him, and especially Margot too, because he keeps, telling everyone she's adopted. That that does not feel good. And, it's got to mess up your self-esteem and psyche there, constantly hearing that you're always on the outside looking in.
Yeah, there was nothing there for her to go back to, so I don't think she did change her feelings about it at the end, but there was no reason for her to. So.
And on Royal's epitaph, died tragically rescuing his family from a sinking battleship.
I mean, I don't think they fact checked. So
No.
anything you want on your grave.
I mean, if you notice, they kind of what is the word they use when they do that in a movie, where they show it something and then it comes back later.
Foreshadowing.
They foreshadow that because when they're in the cemetery and he's talking to Richie, they're standing by that one guy's grave and he's like, "Look at that grave. I want a grave like that."
Oh, yeah.
And it's like decorated hero and beloved husband and father. Yeah. But yeah, it's really funny because you see the priest like look at it too, like, what? And that poor guy, he broke his leg because of all that. And then the conversation, he's like, "Well, I'm part Jewish, but the kids are a third Mick Catholic or something." He's like, "So they were raised." I really don't know. So would you say this is your favorite Wes Anderson movie?
I would say that it probably is, yes. The last time I watched it, it seemed a little more problematic when I was looking at it, trying to look at it from Jess's eyes versus my nostalgia of watching it. And obviously that changed it a little bit, but I still think because of the amount of quirkiness in it and the character building that's probably my favorite.
It's a toss-up. It's a toss-up for me because I really love. This was my first Wes Anderson movie that I watched and that I bought. But when Steve Zissou came out, man, I fell in love with that one. I love Life Aquatic, so I'm on the fence. I can't decide. I mean, I like all of his movies. I like everything that has come out. Grand Budapest Hotel, Moonrise Kingdom. What else was there? I think that was it, right?
Darjeeling.
There's Darjeeling Limited,
And
Fantastic
Darjeeling.
Mr. Fox,
Yeah.
Isle of Dogs.
Thank you. So many more. I keep Fantastic Mr. Fox and Isle of Dogs. I always forget them when I'm sitting here trying to remember his live action movies. I always forget those two. But yeah, I really enjoy all of his stuff. But man, Life Aquatic is probably my favorite. This is probably my second favorite movie of his.
What about you, Jess?
I think at this point it would probably be Moonrise Kingdom. But I haven't watched any of them recently, and I'm wondering if I like them at all. Just because, like, the over precociousness, quirkiness, I'm not feeling like I used to. Like, it feels very, like, 2000s for me. Like, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've moved past all that, and it kind of irritates me. Is it because I'm old? It might just be because I'm old. I don't know. I'd have to watch Moonrise Kingdom again to figure out. But yeah, that would be my favorite right now. Yeah. Sorry if that upset anybody.
Why would that upset anybody?
Because he was all voted on and shit.
Well,
That's it.
I
Stop
mean,
it. Right now we're leaving. That's it.
I I mean, there have been things about Wes Anderson that people point out. They point out that, you know, his movies are mostly about white people. And
Oh, yeah.
that's mostly, and even if there are people of color in his movies, they tend to play stereotypical roles. Even though I think Danny Glover is a pretty good character in this movie where he's not playing any kind of, he's just a very nice man. And that's, of course, the attraction when even Royal points that out. Like, I didn't get it, but now I get it. He's everything I'm not, which is a nice man who's going to be there for her.
Yeah.
Like, Chaz has a scene with Henry before he has a scene with Royal about that. And he's like, well, I'm a widower, too. I know you are, Chaz. Though he is kind of mean to Henry because he's like... Mr. Sherman, like, I don't quit calling him that. Why? That's his name. Like, I don't think he really needs it.
Years as Mr. Sherman.
Your accountant.
I think that's just how kids are when a new man is going to possibly enter their life. They're just trying to be, you know, difficult.
Yeah, especially because, you know, he's the one who wanted Royal's attention most.
That's of course that's why he's acting out that way, even though he doesn't say it. I think that is because he's jealous of Richie because like he turns that poster over too.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, his movies are predominantly white centric. You know, maybe that's just because that's what he knows.
Yeah, and I don't think. Well, I don't know. I really don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with it. I mean, it's his style. Like, it's totally Wes Anderson. Like, you can spot a Wes Anderson movie from other movies. And so that's what I love about Wes Anderson is just that he's got like a thing and like, you know, it's his movie. And I think that's really cool.
And even though he has this style, he has such different stories that are so good as far as the stories go.
Yeah, he tells a good story. And then also you were saying, you know, that they had a lot of emotion in it, but really there's so much lack of emotion with the way they play things, but it's so emotional at the same time. And so it's just really neat how they play that.
Yeah, it's almost like a lack of emotion until it's time to have that one emotional outbreak. And then here's all of the emotion.
And it's totally not realistic. And that may be like where you're at is like, it's just so fantasy that it's not,
no, it's not that.
Life.
No, it's just a little too much self-awareness. Like, hey, this is quirky to be quirky, you know?
I mean, I don't know. He does a lot of movies for a long time about bad dads or like, because I mean, like, our lack of a father figure in his roles, even though he had a father. So I don't know where all this bad dad energy is coming from.
I mean, just because you have a dad who's there and around doesn't mean
that's true. Doesn't make him a good dad because Royal was a bad dad even before he was divorced. He doesn't even know that Margot's middle name is his mother's name. When she's like, "What's my middle name?" and he says, "Oh, that was my mother's name." And she's like, "I know it was." But, you know, getting back to maybe his parents were like that because he does say she's a tough old broad. But if you look at like the dates on her birthstone, she's only, or on her gravestone, she's only like 50 something. So she could have been that old when he called her a tough old broad.
Yeah, but you can call me a tough old broad. Yeah, be fine.
But I mean, also in like earlier times, people looked older than they do now.
Sure.
Like people in their 40s looked like probably in their 60s.
Because they were doing a lot of smoking and a lot of drinking.
Yeah.
But when she was 50, he was probably quite young. You know, like 20s maybe. So you look at 50 and say,
"Oh, that's old." Yeah,
it's not old to us anymore.
She's bored.
Eat his dinner.
No. Well, there we go. So, is there anything else we want to talk about this movie before we get to our ratings?
Yeah.
Oh, I have one final interesting fact. So during the making of this movie, Ben Stiller was nervous to talk to Gene Hackman at all, other than when they had scenes to get together. And apparently Ben Stiller is a huge fan of the Poseidon Adventure, a film in which Gene Hackman stars in.
Oh, I love that movie.
And so finally, I think it was like their last shoot day of them having scenes together. And he's like, look, I've been just wanted to let you know that I'm a big fan of your work. And particularly the Poseidon Adventure was an important film to me as a kid. Like, it's one of the reasons I got into making movies and being part of films. And they said Gene Hackman stood there for a minute and went, oh, yeah, I remember that movie. I did that for the money. I needed the money.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing. Are you, because we have a lot of board games, are you jealous of the board game room in the closet there?
That's what
they have.
That's what me and Lindsay looked at each other and we're like, oh, that's what we want.
Oh, do you guys remember seeing on social media that house that they filmed in is available to rent in New York City? I forget how expensive it is to live there, but you could buy the Royal Tenenbaum house.
Man.
I think it was like $5,000, like for rent, $5,000 a month or something.
That's them Austin prices there.
It's probably not even that bad.
Yeah, because I think it's in New York. I don't know if they filmed it in New York, but I think that house is located somewhere in New York.
$20,000.
$20,000 for
It's in Hamilton Heights.
Hamilton Heights.
$20,000 a
Let
month.
me go find an ATM.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
I couldn't remember.
I wonder if utilities are included in that.
I doubt it.
Man, so 20 a month on top of utilities. Yeah.
20K.
Be all right. Put in some overtime.
Really?
Yeah, just work all day, every day.
Yeah,
No
doubles,
sleep.
just
Triples.
straight through. Yeah.
Triples just all the way through. 7 days a week. You got it.
Yeah.
Do we
Anyway,
have anything else? Anything else we want to talk about, or something we love about this movie or don't love about this movie?
I love it. My brain's mixed up right now because I can smell dinner coming from the other room. So yeah. But anyway, I love it.
All right. So
I love it.
These are my Wes Anderson rankings. Jessica might tell me to change them.
Why would I tell you to change them?
Because when I was telling you what I was thinking of, you're like, well, I like this better. That doesn't fit with this. So
it's because we're all about the alliteration, and so we're trying to get it right.
Yeah. So it's not quite. Sorry, Wes. It's not up to your symmetry levels. I said if you love this movie, if you think it's great, it's a great ensemble because Wes loves his symmetry. He loves a good matching outfit, things that look together. I mean, look, the mice even match in this movie. If it's a pretty solid film, you enjoy it, it's entertaining, that's a nice attire. If you think it's only for film nerds or Wes Anderson fans only, or if it's a little more obscure, it's a deep dive. If you don't think it quite comes together, it's not working for you, then it's style over substance or style over story. And then if it's bad, if you think it's a train wreck, just a horrible film, we're going to call it a beautiful disaster because it's probably still a pretty movie, even if you think it's a bad movie.
So go through them again without the descriptions, just what?
Okay, so great ensemble, nice attire, deep dive, style over story or style over substance, and beautiful disaster.
Oh, for me, it's great ensemble.
Great ensemble.
Nice attire.
Nice attire.
I'm going to say it's a nice dive because I think that you kind of have to have some, like a higher level of film to appreciate some of Wes Anderson's stuff. So, yeah, I want to say nice attire, but also I think it's kind of a film nerd movie.
Yeah.
I will go nice attire.
Okay. I'm going to say great ensemble because this is my favorite Wes Anderson movie. I think he has made better movies. I think Grand Budapest Hotel is probably the best he's ever been at directing. Like that's probably on a technical level, that's his best film.
Right.
But I love the personal story of this, and maybe because I have dysfunction with my own siblings, maybe I feel a little
Don't we all? But I
close
love
to
them.
this. Exactly.
I'm an only
I
child.
love them because I have to.
Well, you don't have to. Like that's
Well,
the other
I'm just
thing
joking.
that I think this
love 'em 'cause I
movie
want
brings
to.
up is that just because you're blood doesn't mean you're family. Like,
Right.
anyone can be your family.
Mm.
Is the people who accept you for who you are and love you for who you are really your family.
Cody's getting in the field.
The only hesitation I have with giving this a deep dive with how you said it's because I feel like if you don't like a Wes Anderson movie, you're probably not going to like any Wes Anderson movie. Like you're just not.
Yeah.
You're just not on that wavelength. That's not your cup of tea.
Yeah.
Like I feel like even though I think not all his movies are fantastic, I feel like there's something there that I enjoy, maybe because I just enjoy him and his aesthetics and his quirkiness. But I feel like if you don't like one, I don't think any of them are going to win you over.
I've enjoyed the story.
With the exception of his animated Fantastic Fox and Isle of Dogs, because it's like it's not the same.
There's still that symmetry, though, in that style and that quirkiness and the music. Like, there's still his hallmarks are in there. It's just different because it's animated.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't have the style. It has its own style.
I think Wes Anderson would do nothing but stop motion animated films if he could.
Mm.
I think he loves that art form.
Right.
Well, I think that's all it's going to be for today, which is pretty cool. We got this at a good, nice, crisp 70 minutes.
Don't know Lindsay.
I know, Lindsay disappeared.
Yeah, I'm sorry she stepped out, and I think kids were fighting in the background, and it was dinner time, so I think she went ahead with that. But one of these days, there will be a full session where you know, where she gets to say.
Well, do you want to holler at her and be like, "What's your rating?" Oh, he is gonna do it.
Oh, okay.
So while he's off, while Chris is off mic, yelling at Lindsay. If you guys want to plug, or you think people might want to follow you on social media, Jess or Steven, where can they find you?
I am irrelevant, so it doesn't really matter.
Wow.
If you find me or what.
Okay, well,
Honesty. Peace.
I'm Just Digress on Instagram and Twitter, and yeah, I mainly just get real angry about politics and shit and sports.
Do you want to plug your podcast, even though you guys haven't done a new episode in a while?
Yeah, we
There you
did
go.
have a podcast fighting over the card catalog. It was snarkiness on like 80s and 90s young adult novels.
Babysitters Club. If you love it, give it a listen.
We did more than that, but it was a lot of that.
A lot of
Yeah.
babysitters.
Basically, it was her making me read these stories from her childhood
Okay, but I stopped.
and then comment on them.
Snark on them.
Snark on them.
I enjoyed it.
I did too.
Bring it back.
A lot of work. I edit.
I know.
All right.
It's because you're a perfectionist.
Okay, let's hear Lindsay's.
Hello. What's Lindsay?
Okay, so what were they?
Give her
Rattle
the
off
reading again.
the ratings again.
Great ensemble, nice attire, deep dive, style over substance, and beautiful disaster.
Whatever the best one is. This is
Great ensemble.
Great ensemble.
that's mine. It's very beautiful and it makes me very sad, but I keep watching it. It's definitely one of his top movies. And I don't say that to like dunk on any of his other movies because I like those too. They're all just to look at with no sound would be fine for me. But
Yeah.
or just to listen without any visuals would be fine for me too. It's great. So yeah, that's my rating. And that's what I learned.
Trick yourself before you go.
Yeah, I used to have that shirt.
Steven's plugging his shirt.
I used to have that shirt years ago.
Plug our shirts, babe. I got Ewoks going on. So we accidentally dressed both in Star Wars today.
Oh, I thought it was on purpose.
Yeah, no, it wasn't on purpose. I looked over and I said, "That's what you're wearing."
And Booger. My Remember the Nerds shirt.
My shirt is literally just a white tank top. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not repping any fandoms today. It's got a pocket. I can put my pen in.
Yay,
Yeah,
pockets!
Pockets are handy.
Yes.
Sorry, Wes, we're not up to your standards of attire. Oh, before we finish,
Steven is.
are you guys excited about his new film, The French Dispatch?
I have not heard of the.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah, he has a new movie coming out. That's partly why we picked him to talk right now, other than that he won March Madness, was that he has a new film coming out.
Have you shown me a trailer?
Yes, and you said that looks like a Wes Anderson movie.
Oh, okay, well, cool. I did not remember this.
It's got an all-star cast, mostly of actors he's worked with before, but a few new faces. But apparently it's vignettes, 3 vignettes about different writers inspired by stuff like The New Yorker and some other magazines that Wes Anderson loves. That's coming out in October.
Oh,
So we'll probably have to wait till it drops on VOD or DVD to rent because, COVID is still rampant.
Is it worth dying over?
Yeah, Wes Anderson, is your movie worth dying over for?
No, sir. No, sir. Just send me one of those screener copies out, and I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had a thought, but I don't know where it went. So
Okay.
I think I'm going to end this. We're going to be back next weekend with Samantha Grace to talk about The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Who knows how wild that conversation will get, because apparently she friggin' loves that movie. So it could get really sweaty next weekend with our nerdum.
Oh, no.
Ew.
Yeah.
Well, not literally sweaty. They call that sweaty when you get super nerdy.
Oh, okay.
It's that's how nerdy the conversation gets.
Call
Well, hey, that was my favorite, so maybe we'll have lots of good information for everybody. So,
Nerd sweat.
I call that a nerdgasm.
Nerdgasm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and check us out, Video Store Rejects.
Yes, we have a YouTube page, which this is being broadcasted right now. And then we have a Facebook page and a Twitter page. And I didn't
R for Rejects.
And I did post the Nightmare Alley trailer that just dropped, but I did post some images because we are doing a series on Guillermo del Toro as well. So his new movie's coming out in December. So check out that trailer. It looks pretty cool. If you watch trailers. I know Steven doesn't watch trailers.
If I know I'm going to watch the movie, I don't watch it.
So he will not be watching
No spoilers.
the new one.
Oh, man. I'm glad I didn't spoil the Matrix trailer for you then.
Well, I hope he didn't listen to my brother and me, because they spoiled the crap out of that trailer.
He didn't hear that.
I'm excited for that. 1999-year-old Chris is like, man, another Matrix? What year are we living in?
It's the Keanu songs, man.
Yeah.
Keanu songs.
I
It's
think
going to be good.
Well, I like all the Matrix movies, so I'm
Me too.
game. So
I am too.
In the Matrix, did you see those?
actually, I have not seen that. I need to watch it.
I
I know.
got it.
Ooh.
I have it too.
I broke
Or
out.
I used to.
I
Yeah,
broke
we
out my
still
big
do.
box
Okay.
I
set,
need to watch
and I've
it.
got the Animatrix, all the making of, and all that. I'm getting ready to dive in when it gets closer to.
They brought the website back up from 1999.
No way! Oh
Yeah.
Okay, I got to check that out.
I will look at any website from '99.
I used to dial
I
up on
think
that.
the Space Jam website's still up, even though the new Space Jam came out. I think the 1996 Space Jam page is still up.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Your time capsule.
All right. Anyone who was listening, I didn't see anybody viewing live with us, but if you view later, whether on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, please stay safe, be responsible, wear a friggin' mask, please.
Get vaccinated if you can.
Yes.
Yes, to our tens of listeners, thank you very much.
We want all them to be-
Literally 10
Yeah.
of them. Have a good night, and we'll be back next weekend.
So you don't have to.
Boy.